Let's bring in Chris DeGaulle.
He is Chris DeGaulle.
Chris DeGaulle.
I'm joined now by Chris DeGaulle.
Host of the Chris DeGaulle Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris DeGaulle.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.
And host of the Chris DeGaulle Show.
Let's bring in Chris DeGaulle.
Please welcome Chris DeGaulle.
The Chris DeGaulle Podcast is presented by USMedicalPlan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at USMedicalPlan.com.
Well, hey there, how do you do? And welcome into the Chris DeGaulle Show podcast. I appreciate you subscribing and downloading this show and making it a destination with regularity. It means a ton to us. I know there are a lot of places you could be. And it really helps us when you leave that 5-star review and that written review at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you have the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows and leave 5 stars, that helps us grow a lot. And of course, if you ever want to pass this show around to somebody else, we're always grateful for you spreading the word, because your endorsement of this show means more than anything I can do myself in terms of marketing or otherwise. So thank you very much. And thanks for supporting the sponsors who make this show possible, like John Ruhlman, the guy that runs USMedicalPlan.com. And he wants to talk to you if buying health insurance is something you dread or you're doing and you think, I can't afford it. It's breaking me. I'm a small business guy. I want to treat my employees well. Or maybe you're somebody who has 2 or 3 employees, not a whole staff, but just 2 or 3, and you still want to give them health insurance, but it's costly. Look, have you shopped group insurance with John? USMedicalPlan.com works with 80 different private health insurers around the country, so John will shop and compare what you're currently paying. He's not going to give you cut rate coverage either. This is the thing that a lot of people worry about. They say, well, okay, if John gets me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm not going to be covered as well? No. In fact, what John has told me a lot is he gets on the phone with people who complain about how much they're paying, and then he tells them, you know what, and you're not really getting the kind of coverage you think you're getting. So John does 2 things right away. He assesses the insurance you have, tells you whether the coverage is any good or not, then immediately goes to work to find you something less expensive with as good as or better than coverage that you currently have. So if you're a small business, if you are an individual, if you're a senior citizen, if you're a young person and you need supplemental coverage, or you just need a policy that you don't have at all, please reach out for just a couple of minutes and talk to John's team about it. They also have a great customer care program so that you're not doing bureaucratic nonsense, waiting on the phone, back billing and paperwork and blah, blah, blah. I love that John is a one-stop shop and a full resource for all your insurance needs, affordability, and full coverage. That is the name of his game. He's a young father himself, so that matters to him. It matters to me, and him taking great care of this audience is the most important thing to me. So cheaper insurance, better coverage, USMedicalPlan.com, USMedicalPlan.com, or 877-410-4321. Before we talk about what happened last night, let's walk through how we got here. Now, you'll remember that I was telling you since last year, we were planning to head to Seattle to leave with Harumpers and listeners to go on a cruise. And we were sitting here minding our own business, getting ready to go on this cruise, and I was looking to take the week of the 4th of July off with the members of this audience to head on a beautiful cruise to Alaska. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you know, Donald Trump had been asking the Husk to have a debate, and he wouldn't do it. And then out of nowhere, one day, the Husk, with his 16 takes in 18-second phone video, releases this.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Right, so bravado, thumping his chest, Mr. Big Shot. Yeah, anytime, anywhere. I hear you're free on Wednesday. Ha, ha, ha. That was when he was going through his big trial, right? Now, of course, when we were talking about this made me think of Mika Brzezinski. Let's hit rewind and go even a little further back. Remember when the Husk was out there speaking and he tripped on a sandbag on stage? Remember how angry Mika got? Remember when she looked in the camera and screamed at Biden's staff? Just a little refresher.
I think his staff needs to own his age. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think they do a good job helping out the president. And I'm not talking about it like, I'm just saying, if you are managing a president's schedule and you are managing a president getting on stage and getting off stage and getting on planes and getting off planes, and yes, he's 80. You need to be there for him and you need to make a pathway. And you sure as hell better make sure he doesn't fall on a sandbag. And I blame the staff for that. I mean, these are the things that are going to hurt him. These are things that are going to be played on a loop. Okay? Let him do his job. Let him do his speeches. Let him work on policy. Let him do his connections in Congress, unlike any president that we've seen. I don't know, since Clinton. But my God, make sure, your Secret Service, you're his staff, that you were there and you're telling him what's next. And it's not because, don't take this as, he can't even get from one place to another. When you're busy and you're on stage, and we've been on stage,
Right.
I've done speeches, and I'm so nervous, I'm doing the speech, I'm trying to get it right, and when it's done, I don't know which way to go, and I'm looking for direction. So do a better job, because you can't have these video images of the president tripping or the president going the wrong way. It's not going to work in this presidency.
Yeah. So remember all that? Remember how mad she got? And then he shows up and he gets all time. Yeah, anytime, any day, pal. You name the date, I'll show up. I'll be there. Well, he didn't trip. He didn't fall, but I think he would have been better off had he. I think he should have tripped or faked tripping and said, I've hurt myself. I got to get to the hospital. That was a disaster. That was an unmitigated disaster. And it popped up seemingly out of nowhere. We're trying to plan, as many people are, a 4th of July holiday. Many people are out next week, so it's not uncommon that people would be taking a break here in this coming week, maybe even getting a jump on it late this week. And I got so irritated, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, that all of a sudden, out of nowhere, lands in our lap, June 27th, a debate day. Where the hell did this come from? I said to myself, and I got really ticked off about it, to be perfectly honest with you. And then I watched this last night in my hotel room, and it hit me. And I don't think it's necessarily profound to you. I know a lot of you already suspected this. I didn't believe it. I now have changed my mind. It hit me that they set June 27th. This thing fell out of the sky and dropped in our laps just ahead of a major holiday week on purpose. Nothing is done by accident. Everything is done on purpose. CNN and the Biden administration, remember how fast it came together? The Husk releases that statement, anytime, anywhere, pal. And then all of a sudden, bang, it's June 27th. Huh? How did we land at that date so fast? I say to myself. They needed time to dispose of the Husk. The answer is the reason this came together and came together so fast and came together at this bizarre time out of nowhere. Less than a month, I believe, they gave us notice. Which is not a lot, frankly, for everybody to move heaven and earth to put on a show like that last night. They needed time to dispose of this guy, and CNN was part of the disposal process. I have been left with no other option but to conclude CNN last night was part of Operation Clean Sweep. Operation Shuck the Husk. There is no other way to see what we saw last night. CNN was in a coordinated effort with the DNC to finally purge themselves of Joe Biden. His usefulness has worn out. His time is up. Barack Obama no longer needs him. Thanks, Joe. We'll take it from here. Now, what are they going to do? That's the big question. And everybody was speculating. Look, conventional wisdom is now he's going to be thrown out and thrown off the ticket. Now, there's only one problem with that, and there's only one reason, and I tweeted this out yesterday, that I can't go along with conventional wisdom that he's out. I'm not suggesting that that's not what they were trying to do. I just told you that. I think they are. I think the Husk is stubborn enough that he's not going to go without a fight. We know his visiting angel, Dr. Jill, loves the gig. She doesn't want to give it up. And this family is engaged in elder abuse, the likes of which we've never seen. Remember, he's the gravy train. The Husk's name is what's keeping all the Bidens living comfortably and hip deep in cocaine. So as long as the Husk is in the gig, they can continue to live the life of Riley out there and sell his name all over the globe and live like kings and queens. They need the Husk to stick around. Hang in there, Joe. Never mind he's near dead. Mika out there screaming, you better take care of him. He's falling all over the place. They don't care. Just keep him upright and keep him tight. Did you see Dr. Jill after this thing was over last night? She grabs the mic. They go out to this screech. I don't even know what this was. Some rally in Atlanta. Everybody's watched this car crash. He goes out on stage with her to some group, and she starts yelling, "Wasn't he great? Didn't he do great? He answered all the questions." What are we watching? I'm seeing Dr. Jill screeching at this crowd about how great he looked. And even Biden kind of looked like, I know I didn't look great. And the crowd was like, I don't know, I don't think he looked great. She won't let him leave. So you've got a dynamic here. Operation Shuck the Husk is certainly underway as far as the DNC and CNN are concerned. You got a Biden crime family that will not let go of the reins of power. So we're at a draw. Conventional wisdom is he's out and he's going to be replaced. And now everybody's speculating who's going to replace him. You're forgetting one thing. He's got to agree to it, folks. I remember the plot of Dave, great movie. Kevin Kline plays the fake president. They found a body double. The real president was in a coma or something, and so this nefarious chief of staff went out and found a body double of the president to pretend he's the president, while the nefarious chief of staff tells this puppet who's playing president what to do so that he can reap the rewards. That's the whole plot. And then about midway through the movie, Kevin Kline, who's playing the fake president, starts to kind of like the gig. And he says, well, I don't think I want to leave. And I don't think I'm going to do it your way. People think I'm the president. I'm going to start running things the way I want to run it. I am convinced, as I've told you, that this is exactly what Joe Biden has been about all along. They let him fly on the plane. They let him wear the jacket. They let him walk in the room and say, hail to the chief. And then he goes home and has a pudding cup. He is not in any room making any decision. He runs nothing. And you can tell he runs nothing because of the way Cacklebritches, who came on the show after this disaster happened last night, Anderson Cooper had her on, and this was maybe one of the most telling exchanges you'll hear. Anderson Cooper interviewing Cacklebritches, the vice president, after this train wreck, I don't know, maybe a half an hour afterward, and her job now is to go out there and bat cleanup from this mess. And yes, folks, I will get into the mess of the actual night in a little bit, but that's not the story here. Now everybody's trying to figure out, what are we going to do? CNN immediately kicked into he's got to go mode. I think that entire production was to get him out. I think the DNC wanted them to do it. It was a train wreck. There is no way, as Mika says, you allow him to go into that buzzsaw behaving and performing that way. And there's no way you allow him to look the way he looked. You don't do a production that way to make him look extra bad. It was bad. And everybody knows it. He knew it. But I don't think he's going to go. I don't think he wants to go. And so in comes Cacklebritches, who would be the heir apparent here. And that's the thing. There is no way to get around this. And no one has given me a convincing argument that you can get around her. Maybe you could buy her off. I suppose if you said, look, we'll take care of you. You're going to be a very wealthy woman, but you cannot be president. We're not going to allow it. We already have our hand-picked favorite. And I'm not even sure then that's going to work. As Larry Elder warned us some time ago, if they pass her over, that will send a message to black women that will not be received well. They'll never forgive the DNC if they shove her out. And I think everybody assumes if she, for some reason, wouldn't be the one stepping into this role, it isn't because she turned it down. It's because they wouldn't let her. That's the way it's going to be seen. So Democrats have got a problem here. Shuck the Husk is only half of it. Who are you going to put in his place? And if it's not her, what are you going to say to the Democrat base, black women in particular, that America's first historic black vice president isn't going to get the nod? How do you explain that? What, are you going to put in the hairdo from California? The white guy? Good luck.
Just
Joe Biden was very clear. He will sign back into law the protections of Roe v. Wade.
The person we saw tonight, the president we saw tonight on that stage, is that how he is every day?
The Joe Biden that I work with every day is someone who, as I have said, has performed in a way that has been about bringing people into the Oval Office, Republicans and Democrats, to compromise in a way that is extraordinary these days because it just doesn't happen, but Joe Biden can make it happen. The Joe Biden I see is someone who goes to our allies around the world and strengthens NATO to the point that there are 2 new members of NATO who just about 4 years ago, people said, is NATO even have a reason for existing? The Joe Biden I know is someone who has delivered 800,000 new manufacturing jobs and bringing manufacturing back to the United States, not shipping jobs out like Donald Trump did. So that's the Joe Biden I know.
Vice President Kamala Harris, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
All right. Now, I want you to pay close attention to this. The CNN panel, this was the highlight of their night, mind you. After this visit, the CNN panel, who had been an absolute apoplectic tailspin, starts frothing, saying, why don't they use cackle britches more? She was spectacular. First of all, she was not spectacular. It was a disaster of a post-debate interview, and you didn't even hear the front of it, which maybe we'll play a little later. But he was so bad, this looked like, I mean, she's Margaret Thatcher to these people now. Did she give you any confirmation? Did she ever directly answer the question? What we just saw tonight, is that what he's like behind closed doors? She never did. Never once. She talks past tense. He has performed. He did this. He did that. It's all rearview mirror stuff. She was not talking enthusiastically about a guy who is strong and bold and leading and in the room and in charge, large and in charge. That, at least that was not the impression she left with me. And I am left with nothing but to conclude last night was the beginning of the end for the Husk as far as the establishment Democrat Party and the establishment Democrat media believe. They have one problem, though. Joe ain't going to go quietly, and Dr. Jill ain't going to go quietly. And that's the thing that has always been the problem with this plan. He didn't want to leave. You know, our friends at Gulag America, who have been great sponsors of this show, founding members of the Harumph Society, they like to say their catchphrase, it's not our wish, it's our warning. What exactly does that mean, you might ask? Well, look no further than the indefinite incarceration of Capitol protesters, attacks on the integrity of Supreme Court justices, not to mention a certain recent New York court verdict, 34 counts. Then you begin to understand. But never fear. Gulag America is here with the apparel that you need to express your distress, your frustration, you know, like an inverted U.S. flag shirt or their original Banana Republic shirt, which is hilarious, or their exclusive J6er shirt that reads, Free the Hostages. And it might just look a bit familiar to you Philly sports fans in particular. So please head over to gulagamerica.com and take advantage of their pre-inflation, pre-Brandon pricing. Just $24 for standard t-shirts all year long. And take an additional 10% off your entire order when you use my promo code CHRIS10. That's CHRIS10. That's how you let them know you listen to the show, which I appreciate, but more importantly, that's how you get the great discount at checkout. gulagamerica.com, CHRIS10. CHRIS10 is your promo code when you shop. It's Gulag America, where they say, and now you know why, it's not our wish, but it is our warning. Folks, the emperor has no clothes. Everyone that we've told you has been lying to you. It was proven last night. They're all liars. The cheap fake that Pepe Le Pew was talking about has actually been them all along. We're living their cheap fake. Fauci, masks, mandates, they've all gone down in flames. The border is secure. Over. This debate was bigger than just a debate. It was a reckoning. Trump destroyed Biden on policy. This was not a debate about personality. This was a substantive policy debate, and on every single issue, Joe Biden was decimated. 3.5 years, everything we've told you about this husk, this failure, this weak, feckless lie of a man that was never in charge was on full display last night. And we would play these leftists on media who would silence Donald Trump and continue to lie and let Joe Biden hide and lie for him. Remember this golden oldie? Let's dig back into the archives and let me remind you of the Pompadour. You know, the Nerd Prom King and Queen, Mr. Tortoiseshell Glasses, Mr. Vanity Fair, black and white weirdo Annie Leibovitz pictures. Him and Mika. Remember, Mika freaked out. You take better care of him. Joe Biden, they have defended this guy to the extent that Scarborough has even thrown his entire party that he claimed to be a member of overboard, and now goes full tilt press secretary for Joe Biden and how strong and great he is. This is a little flashback to March of this year.
I've said it for years now. He's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, you know, I don't know if people knew this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what? I don't really care. Start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth.
We're rolling.
And F you if you can't handle the truth.
Oh, give it to us, please.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's Joe Scarborough, March of this year. It was a joke then. We played it for you then. We laughed at him then. Last night made a colossal jackass out of that little monologue and Joe Scarborough. Take a listen to this morning's eulogy just months later on the very same show.
Well, I think I should start by saying, without any apologies, that I love Joe Biden and Jill, and I will gladly debate
Did he die?
anybody, anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah, you're a tough guy.
Over the issue of whether Joe Biden has been the most effective president in passing bipartisan legislation.
Oh, no. That's not what you said.
And expanding NATO.
No, that's not what you said.
Responding to the rising threat coming from China.
That's not what you said,
flexing
Joe.
America's strength around China.
No, Joe.
By having the strongest economy in the world, bar none,
Revisionist
the
history,
strongest
buddy.
economy.
Remember, you had the camera
relative
pull
to
in.
The rest of the world.
Pull in. Listen to me. I don't
50,
care what you
60,
say.
70
Remember?
years, the strongest dollar.
Oh, no.
The strongest military relative to the rest of the world. I would
Listen
argue,
to this
and many others
build-up.
would argue.
Listen to this
Since
build-up.
1945, I think.
But come on.
His presidency has been an unqualified success. If, however, you believe, as do I, and as do so many people who watch this program and who...
I don't know if it's so many, but...
fear. Just how dark of a place a second Donald Trump term will take America. Then I think it's critical that we ask the same questions.
This is amazing.
About this man I love, respect, and whose public service in saving this country from Donald Trump over the last 3.5 years, I honor and always will.
Can you believe this?
I think we have to ask the same questions of him that we have asked of Donald Trump since 2016, and that is, if he were CEO and he turned in a performance like that, would any corporation in America, any Fortune 500 corporation in America, keep him on as CEO?
All right. That's remarkable. That's remarkable. From March to this morning. That was Joe Scarborough this morning after in March saying, hey, pull in tight. Hey, cameraman, I don't care what the F you say. Listen to me. Joe Biden is the toughest, biggest, baddest, big shot, big to this morning, rattling off some fictitious resume of accomplishment. But I do have to say, unfortunately, we have to ask ourselves the tough question. If he were CEO of a company and he turned in a performance like that, well, I thought you were just going on and on and on. Mr. Big Shot, Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Cameraman, pull in tight. I don't care who effing doesn't believe. Which is it, Joe?
Oh, Joshi is on CNN, Chris.
Oh, good. Little Joshi, pocket-sized diminutive governor of Pennsylvania, who's been humming Hail to the Chief, waiting for this moment. I knew they were going to spring him. Don't doubt he's thinking, salivating, wondering if he can't possibly be the one called up from the bullpen. Take a listen.
And undermine the rights of Pennsylvanians, and we won in court nearly every single time. Donald Trump promises more of the same. Hell, it'll probably be even worse.
But Governor, what I'm saying is, for all those people who agree with you, and there are many, are you more or less fearful this morning that he will be reelected based on what you saw last night?
Look, I would say to all those folks who are out there worrying right now, start working and stop worrying. There's a clear contrast in this race. And in many ways, even though there's two gentlemen on the ballot, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, I think this election is more a referendum on all of us and whether in this nation we still value freedom. And Joe Biden promises more freedom. Donald Trump promises less. Whether we want to try and continue to move forward.
I don't need to hear any more of this. That's objectively ridiculous. This is the governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania whose citizenry had to go to the ballot box to rein in the abuses of his predecessor. Please don't tell me that Joe Biden represents more freedom and Donald Trump less, you tiny, tiny, tiny little fella. That's a demonstrative lie, the biggest one of all. And I love how Democrats turn this into your fault. You can't let Joe Biden down, damn it. Little Joshy's pep talk this morning is quit your belly aching and get up and go help the old man win? Right. Need I remind you of what David Urban said? Let's play that one again. Number 91, David Urban talking about specifically Pennsylvania, and what about Bob Casey, who's running for Senate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, must be thinking about last night.
If anybody in America thinks that was even close to being an okay debate by Joe Biden, I'm living in a parallel universe. That was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden from the second he walked out to the closing statement. The biggest issue for Democrats is abortion, and he couldn't give an answer. He gave an answer, he couldn't even give a coherent answer on the biggest issue for Democrats tonight. I've heard from leading Democrats across the United States, elected governors, congressmen, who are texting me and saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose if Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Bob Casey, I promise you tonight, in the state of Pennsylvania, is thrown up in his mouth because he knows that if he's got to stand next to Joe Biden, he's going down in Pennsylvania. If he's on the ticket, I don't know how it's going to work.
Well, the governor of Pennsylvania has just gone on television, David, to say, stop whining and start working. You got to work harder for old Joe. Because if Trump wins, it's less freedom for you. Even Aunt B, the fraud from Missouri, Claire McCaskill, who was beaten so badly by Josh Hawley years ago. Remember, this is the phony that used to be. She was the Josh Shapiro before Josh Shapiro was a thing. This was Josh Shapiro in pearls and a sweater set. She used to, come from her kitchen live and be Miss Moderate. Voted with Obama 100% of the time. Finally got her butt kicked and helped turn the state of Missouri she comes from red for the rest of its days, probably. Even she, last night, could not deny what we saw.
Now, the hard and heartbreaking part. I have been a surrogate for some presidential candidates in my time. I know what the job is after a debate of a surrogate. I've never wanted to be a surrogate more than I do right now. Because when you're a surrogate, you have to focus on the positives. But I have said very clearly and very plainly on this network, and my job now is to be really honest. Joe Biden had one thing he had to do tonight, and he didn't do it. He had one thing he had to accomplish, and that was reassure America that he was up to the job at his age. And he failed at that tonight. Now, does that mean that my phone blowing up with senators and campaign operatives and donors, big donors from all over the country, does that mean that Joe Biden is not going to be the candidate? I don't know that. I think we'll know a lot more in a few weeks.
All right. So now listen, here, these people are not saying this on accident. I want you to know how important it is very specifically that someone like her is saying it. Someone like Van Jones is saying it. Someone like David Axelrod is saying it. Now remember, Axelrod is probably the closest of all of them to this. David Axelrod, Obama's former brain. And it brings him no pleasure. You know, he wants to try to keep everybody focused on what a rotten SOB Donald Trump is. But even he is flirting with this. And the fact that this kept happening from people like David and Van Jones and Claire McCaskill, these are not just talking head John King pundit types. These are people that come from the deep, deep bowels of the Democrat Party. And they kept doing this last night. It's very notable. Listen to David Axelrod, number 92.
I just want to say one thing, especially to you two guys. If, for whatever reason, there's a change at the top of the ticket,
there it is.
You guys are in trouble with Donald Trump.
They're
because the
floating
guy
this.
who was up there tonight is not a guy who's going to inspire people.
He's got to say this.
He did not show in any way that he has changed from the guy who people have a very positive opinion of for a lot of good reason.
I think Donald Trump won several policy exchanges tonight. I think he did well on immigration. I think he did well on the economy. I think he did well on inflation. I think he went back to Afghanistan as he should have. The thing he did not do was after he realized that he had Biden beaten on policy and on image, he should have turned the page and sounded an optimistic note about what we can become as a people and as a country. He did not do that. He continued to pummel Joe Biden all night. I understand what you're saying, but at the end of the night, very few things about the policy exchanges is going to be remembered. People are going to remember Joe Biden. They're going to remember him shuffling out. They're going to remember him staring blankly into the camera. They're going to remember him looking down, losing his train of thought. And they're going to remember that everything I thought I knew, but the White House told me don't believe my own eyes, is actually true.
But that's not what I'm saying. What I said, Scott, was if Joe Biden were not the candidate, if there was another candidate, I think Donald Trump would be in deep trouble.
And folks, I don't know who the Scott guy is. I forget their name. I don't watch CNN, so forgive me. That's a Republican guy. And I agree with his take on this. Donald Trump on these substantive policy issues won the night last night. On substance. It was not style. I mean, Joe Biden deteriorating before our very eyes was all you need to talk about style. On the substance, Trump brought it. On the substance, we're living it. The lack of substance. Can Joe Biden survive this debate performance? I asked Harumphers, if you are not a Harumpher, by the way, are you missing some good stuff? Are you missing some great conversation? And if ever there were a time to jump aboard the bandwagon of the Harumph Society, it is right now, my friends. It has been white-hot discussion. You know, at the Harumph Society, I ran a contest at the beginning of the year, and I asked Harumphers to pick a very specific calendar date. If, in fact, we believe Joe Biden is getting out of this race, when do you suspect it will be? Pick the date, and I'm going to give a big prize to the Harumpher that picks the date closest to correct. And at the time, we were all kind of joking and wondering if, in fact, they really believed that was going to happen. Now conventional wisdom is it's absolutely coming and there's no avoiding it. I'm still not there, but we have documented every Harumpher who has specifically registered their guess. It could be that we're now coming closer to a Harumpher winning a fantastic prize for the closest date picked when the husk would jump out of this thing. But I asked at the survey, our poll question at the Harumph Society last night, and those of you who are subscribers, you already saw my analysis of this late last night or early this morning. I said, can Joe Biden survive this debate performance? Your choice is he will. He's stubborn. No way. He'll be forced out. Yes, he will survive it. They have no one else. At this time, 47% of voters at the Harumph Society say no way he will be forced out. But interestingly, 49%, just slightly more, between the two say he will survive this or they have no one else. So Harumphers, by just a slight margin right now, believe he is going to sustain this mess and hang in there and still be the nominee. Just a slight margin of Harumphers do right now, because they say either he's stubborn or they have no one else. You know my position. I've shared this already. I believe that Joe Biden is going to hang in there because his family demands he do it. He thinks too much of himself. They cannot allow folks, Joe Biden's existence is what he tells himself about himself. This man's entire life story has been a fiction since he first ran for president and had to drop out because he lied about a speech he gave. He stole from a British politician. And he was forced to drop out in humiliation for plagiarism his first campaign decades ago. This man has been a lie from corn pop to the train riding to on and on and on. We've been sold a bill of goods about this liar, this fictitious train riding everyman from Scranton. It has been a lie. He has always been a mean-spirited, angry nobody with a bunch of loser family who've been grifting and suckling at the teat of his power seat for years. He said that Trump has the morals of an alley cat. What exactly do the Biden family morals look like then by comparison? You want to talk about morality? You've been lying about your own son's death, you scumbag. Your scumbag son and his coke habit and his hooker banging and impregnating girls and not claiming his children, you scum. Your square-jawed bar-backed brother globe-trotting, bagging money. Your scumbag brother who defrauded an insurance company. You people are scum. You Biden family, you crime family scumbags have the temerity to stand up there and talk about Donald Trump having the morals of an alley cat? You're scum. The Biden family are scum. He's not a sorry old man. He's a scumbag. And now, nature's catching up to the scumbag. It comes for all of us. Regardless, whether you're a great upstanding moral guy or a scumbag, nature comes for all of us. I don't feel sorry for him. He's a lying sack of excrement who now happens to be deteriorating like a sack of excrement right before our eyes, because that's what happens to us when we get old. Sorry. It's just true. It's going to happen to me too. The difference is I hope I have loved ones who respect me enough to not take advantage of me and throw me out in front of people, keep me on a microphone. Come on, Chris. Sit up. Keep breathing in and out. We need the paycheck. That's what's going on. And we all see it and we all know it. Operation Shuck the Husk is what we're seeing right now. Every single left-winger on media today, in the media, on television, they have all decided it is time to dispose of this guy. The question is, will he go? And will the Biden family allow him to? And at this hour, I still maintain no. He will not go. He does not want to leave, and his family will not allow him. This can't be in the Biden family, in their corruption and in their lie that they tell themselves about their biography. This cannot be, do you understand? This can't be their political epitaph. Do you think the Biden family wants to go out this way? Do you think the last thing they want the country to remember Joe Biden for was this last night? The hell. Don't ever discount the ego, the arrogance, the pride this family has, the lies they tell themselves. The investments, the money they've been making off of their name. They can't let that go. They won't dare let that go. Not without a fight. So yes, the Democrat Party, he's been a useful idiot. They're ready to move on. No doubt about it. Obama's ready to move on. The press is ready to move on. They want to install somebody new. But there's one problem. The Biden crime family was given the keys to the White House. And they're not going to turn them over voluntarily. They're not going to have a Nixon moment. They're not going to have a Johnson moment. Mr. President, for the good of the country, for the good of the party, it's time for you to step aside. And Jill's going to shove him down to the floor and say, the hell, we're going anywhere. Joe, go over there and eat your pudding. Mama needs a new car or whatever the hell she's buying with the money that they're bagging. Hunter needs more coke and hookers. Jimmy needs another vacation house. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who've been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 Election Wealth Protection Report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know, we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. Our dear friend Mark Weaver has been very, very patient, and I'm so grateful to him. Mark Weaver is a brilliant guy. He's a constitutional attorney. He is a former spokesperson for the DOJ. He is a masterful communicator in his own right. He watched this along with you and me. And Mark, not why I invited you. I actually wanted to talk Supreme Court, but I know you study this stuff as a communicator. Your read on this last night. Good morning.
Good morning. You know what? I think we may have a turning point in American history. Normally, the Democrats go out after bad performances like this, and they all tell the same lie because they need to keep their guy in power. To have them all across the networks acknowledge the obvious was remarkable. And I think it's because Joe Biden and his team really made a tactical blunder. They thought by having this debate so early and pushing another one until the fall, that it would somehow show that Joe Biden was fit. And if he was fit, that might have been a great strategy. But because he's not, They blundered. Now there's no chance for him to get next to Trump until the fall, and his cognitive decline will only continue. So the fact that all the Democrats were willing to tell the truth at once, I think, is worth noting.
Do you agree with my theory? Last night was Operation Shuck the Husk. This was their official bullet in the chamber, directed at him to move him out of the way. Do you agree or not? Or is that too cynical?
Well, sometimes cynical is correct, but it would certainly explain what I'm saying, because what other reason would they have for all of them leaping to, well, maybe he needs to step down? Problem is, the way the laws are in many of these states where Joe Biden has filed petitions, he can't be taken off the ballot. He has to agree to step away from it. And if that's true, there is not an agreement amongst Democrats about who would replace him. If they tried to not go to Kamala, it would create a civil war within the Democratic Party. So I think they're stuck. We're going to have lots of talk about him leaving, lots of talk about him stepping away, the way Lyndon Johnson did in 1968 when it became clear that he could not win. There'll be lots of talk like that, but I don't think it will come to fruition.
I don't think he wants to go. Although, how about this? Some brilliant contributors to this program just said that they think the DOJ will ultimately threaten him if he won't willingly go. They'll say, we don't want to make more trouble for your family than you're already in. It would be best if you went away. How about that? Too cynical?
Yeah, would that the DOJ would actually have the temerity to enforce the law. But the other thing that we're going to talk about here this morning, which is the presidential immunity case, is going to impact this decision, right? Because depending on how much immunity the Supreme Court gives the presidency, that would affect any ability of a future federal prosecutor to go after Joe Biden.
Interesting. Oh, so let's pivot here. And you just said something so smart. So the Supreme Court could come down with a decision to grant presidential immunity, effectively tell Jack Smith you cannot go after Trump on this document stuff, in which case that also bubble wraps the husk from future prosecution, is what you're saying.
I think we've coined a new term in American politics right here, bubble wrapping the husk. I like that.
But this is how the Supreme Court can credibly say, we believe presidents are immune from this kind of thing. Democrats will be able to then say the same thing about Biden. Well, you can't, because of course this is right. If you believe the Department of Justice has lots of dirt on the Bidens, and they do, and they might weaponize this department against the Bidens, this gives the Bidens protection too. I hadn't really considered that.
It does, which is why this case, which could be handed down as early as a couple hours from now, or perhaps next week, this presidential immunity case, which is going to be somewhere in the middle between no immunity and full immunity. It's why this case will be worth focusing on far more than some of the recent cases we've seen, like the social media case, which were decided procedurally. No standing, or we're not going to uphold this abortion ruling out in Western Idaho. Those cases were all procedural. They will resolve this case substantively, and it will be worth reading every page of that decision.
So if you're a betting man, and I know I'm so bummed because this will be my final show before we hit the high seas of Alaska. So if that ruling comes down, post show today or Monday, unfortunately, I will not be here. So I'll just ask for your best prediction right now.
It's clear the court wants to grant some immunity. At least most of them want to grant some immunity to the president. It'll be a definition of what an official act is, and they will give us a complicated test about how to decide when a prosecutor wants to charge a president with something, whether that was an official act, which the president would be immunized for, or whether it's a private act, which the president could be prosecuted for. That's what we'll get. We're going to get a very complicated test for immunity.
Murphy versus Missouri, one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen out of this court. It reminds me of when they decided to punt on the election integrity issue and the constitutionality of, certifying ballots that shouldn't have been certified. And they basically said, we're just not getting involved. That's effectively what they said. Now, the AP reported it as the Supreme Court sided with Biden. No, they didn't. To your point, what you just said, on a technicality, they basically said the states don't have standing to sue on this issue of the Biden administration leaning on social media to censor its users. But for heaven's sakes, if state attorneys general don't have standing, then who the hell has standing, Mark?
Yeah, there should have been standing with one of the people whose speech was squelched by this illegal partnership between social media execs and the White House. Here's what I think happened. Everybody knows that the three Democrat appointees would love to have upheld what the White House did. So Jackson and Kagan and Sotomayor, they were an easy vote for the White House was fine. And, it's pretty clear to see that Thomas Alito and now we know Gorsuch would be an easy vote the other way. That puts in the middle the chief, John Roberts, Justice Kavanaugh, and Justice Barrett. And they have the ability to swing this in the right way to protect the First Amendment. But remember, John Roberts likes the court, and he wants to make sure the court's integrity is protected. So the political thuggery that started under Obama, where they question and threaten the Supreme Court with their rhetoric, has been extended now into the Biden era, where Biden goes around implying heavily that perhaps the Supreme Court shouldn't be trusted anymore because it's too political. Or maybe these justices need to step away from a case because they're too political. I think Roberts took note of those threats and got with Kavanaugh and got with Barrett and said, we don't need this case. Let's find a standing reason why we don't have to resolve it. We'll resolve it later when maybe things are not quite so hot. That's what I think they did, and I think that's embarrassing.
I couldn't agree more, and it's also why I think they're going to come down in Trump's favor and all future presidents' favor on this immunity thing. I think they do. You and I have talked about this before. I think they're very human and calculating, and they try to turn the heat down by throwing the left some bones on things like this or abortion, because they're about to bring the heat on this immunity thing. I really do think they try to politically balance their rulings by throwing the left some chum to keep them calm. That's a working theory. Is that also too cynical of me?
No, John Roberts is a Supreme Court institutionalist. Recall that he was a clerk to former Chief Justice Rehnquist and also has argued in front of the court when he was a lawyer numerous times. So he reveres the court and wants to protect it. And this is his way of doing that, which is to use some of his political intuition, which is not as conservative as you and I. I wouldn't call him a liberal, but he's more moderate. He's trying to use his intuition to steer the court away from the issues that will cause the most anger from those who he thinks are likely to criticize him. And right now that's Joe Biden and the attack dogs of the left.
Mark Weaver, you've been a gentleman to be patient with us today on a flexible schedule in this post-debate coverage. I'm grateful for you and look forward to talking to you when we get back after the 4th of July.
Smooth sailing, my friend.
Well, if you haven't noticed, inflation is still at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. And a new central bank digital currency is on the way. That could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It seems like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. And so what do you do to help protect yourself? Did you know you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or a 401k with zero taxes or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing it right now. And you should consider it too if you want to preserve and protect your wealth. And there's only one company that I would recommend to you to do that. It's a company called Preserve Gold. Now, they'll go over all your options and make the process of acquiring precious metals easy and simple. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited with the Better Business Bureau. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews, so you know you're in good hands. Just text Stigall to 50505. Again, text Stigall, my last name, Stigall, to 50505 and get an exclusive offer for everybody that's tuned into this show. You're going to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase or a retirement account rollover. Yeah, that's huge. Don't wait. Text my name, Stigall, to 50505 today. Get your free gold and silver investment guide and take that first step. Again, that's Stigall, Stigall. Text it to 50505 and get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. Let me just say this. CNN held a debate that ultimately last night made them look completely disreputable. And while I'll confess, they did for CNN, they did a fairly straight-up job. Jake Tapper, Dana Bash, this format, no people, no audience. I didn't think it was unfair or set up in any way. I really don't. I think it was so bad for Biden on purpose. It did nothing but help Trump. It was Operation Shuck the Husk. That was why it was done. That was why it was put on. The split screens were devastating, jaw open, Biden with his jaw wide open at times, staring off, buggy-eyed. It was produced to make him look bad, but it also made CNN look foolish because of all of the times, all of these many months and years, they have censored Trump and they have hidden Biden away. Remember who Jake Tapper is. Remember the audio that we play you routinely on this show of what Jake Tapper is and what he's all about.
We do have now some of the sound, as I told you. We're not, and the audience, we're not carrying his remarks live because, frankly, he says a lot of things that are not true and sometimes potentially dangerous.
This case isn't going to be settled legally in a cafe. It's going to be settled in the court based on the facts and law.
The folks in the control room, I don't need to see any more of that. He's trying to turn this in. He's trying to turn it into a spectacle, into a campaign ad. That's enough of that. We've seen it already. Let's go over again the 37 charges.
And Rachel Maddow? She was also
is making remarks tonight from his home in Florida. As far as we can tell, and what we were prepared for here is that this is basically a campaign speech in which he is repeating his same lies and allegations against his perceived enemies. It is just getting started. So far, he's just giving his normal list of grievances. We don't consider that necessarily newsworthy, and there's a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things. So our deal with you is that we will monitor these remarks. If he does say anything newsworthy, we will turn them around and report on that right away. But for now, just know that it's happening and we're not taking it.
As I said last night, those of you who are harumphers, you've already read my analysis today, or it's in your email box and you can. Trump was strong. Trump prosecuted. Trump brought up that border over and over again. And that is why what we saw last night, they had to do it because it's Operation Shuck the Husk. But in doing so, what they also had to show is Trump's dominance, the Husk's feebleness. And it's why Trump has been censored all this time. It's why Hunter Biden's laptop was protected. Biden is what we always knew he was, nothing but a husk, a frail sock puppet. And the master didn't have his hand up his rectum last night, couldn't save him. CNN showed last night why censorship has been necessary on this network. Biden wasn't protected, and yet all the rules were stacked in his favor. Let's just go down the list. Let's start with the very first reaction of the night was from CNN's John King. This is number 89, Fast Eddie.
Right now, as we speak, there is a deep, a wide, and a very aggressive panic in the Democratic Party. It started minutes into the debate, and it continues right now. It involves party strategists. It involves elected officials. It involves fundraisers. And they're having conversations about the president's performance, which they think was dismal, which they think will hurt other people down the party in the ticket. And they're having conversations about what they should do about it. Some of those conversations include, should we go to the White House and ask the president to step aside? Other of the conversations are about, should prominent Democrats go public with that call? Because they feel this debate was so terrible. They do say...
Well, okay, all right, that's enough. Now, look, here's the thing about that. If prominent Democrats go public, it's because he's not doing what I told you. He is doing what I told you. That is, if you start to see, watch for this, if you start to see notable Democrats publicly saying it's time for the Husks to step down, that's when you know what I've said is true. The Husk is not going away, and they've asked him nicely, and now they're going to have to play tough. Otherwise, they're not going to go to that extreme. You're not going to see a Democrat call for this publicly. You'll hear whispers, and you'll let their surrogates in the media keep saying it. But until you see prominent Democrats saying it publicly, that's when you know they've got a problem and the Husk isn't going away. Van Jones, we played some of this earlier, but let me give you a little more Van Jones again. We're just going to go through this quickly. Number 90.
He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. And he looked... I'll give you the analysis. You kind of have the old man versus the con man. I can walk you through how I'm supposed to see it and say it, but I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. as a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that.
All right. David Urban on this same panel of 9,000 people sitting at the CNN desk.
If anybody in America thinks that was even close to being an okay debate by Joe Biden, I'm living in a parallel universe. That was an unmitigated disaster for President Biden from the second he walked out to the closing statement. The biggest issue for Democrats is abortion, and he couldn't give an answer. He gave an answer, he couldn't even give a coherent answer on the biggest issue for Democrats tonight. I've heard from leading Democrats across the United States, elected governors, congressmen, who are texting me and saying, I'm worried I'm going to lose if Joe Biden's at the top of the ticket. Bob Casey, I promise you tonight, in the state of Pennsylvania, is thrown up in his mouth because he knows that if he's got to stand next to Joe Biden, he's going down in Pennsylvania. If he's on the ticket, I don't know how it's going to work.
You think what about Bob was thrown up in his mouth last night, Fast Eddie? You agree?
I thought Joe did a great job, and I'm here.
If you thought Bob was hiding before, ladies and gentlemen, wait till after last night. You'll never see him again. Erin Burnett let something slip last night. She's sitting down with Chris Wallace and some others on the debate floor in the spin room. Listen closely to what Erin Burnett is mad. You can tell she's
he goes through 6 days of preparation at Camp David.
More than that.
And they know the rules.
It was more than a week.
Okay, so more than a week. They know the rules. He practices with the mics. He knows every one of these questions is coming. And yet he couldn't fill the time. Now, I just want to...
Whoa. Hang on. We got to go back to the beginning here, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you heard that correctly. Erin Burnett, in her snit about how poorly he did, admits something. Did you catch it? He knows every one of these questions is coming, Fast Eddie. Did she just admit another Donna Brazile moment?
It sounded pretty natural rolling off her tongue, Chris.
He knows every one of these questions is coming, and yet he couldn't fill the time. Incidentally, I didn't tell you this earlier. Worst moment of the night for Joe Biden? When they asked him, can you do this job well into your 80s? And he couldn't fill the time answering that question. And Dana Bash said, you still have 80 seconds, sir. That, to me, was the most deadly moment of the night. I know there were others, but to me, when you ask a guy, are you fit to do this job? And then he mutters some nonsense and then concludes, and the moderator says, you still have 80 seconds, Mr. President. Oof. All right, Erin Burnett again. This is too good. Take a listen to this. Number 93.
But Chris, he goes through 6 days of preparation at Camp David.
More than that.
And they know the rules.
It was more than a week.
Okay, so more than a week. They know the rules. He practices with the mics. He knows every one of these questions is coming. And yet he couldn't fill the time. Now, I just want to, let's see what the White House is saying. Sources close to the White House are saying he had a cold, wasn't feeling well. I mean, as you would expect, that came out early on in the debate. But what accounts for someone with so much experience doing so much preparation and this being the outcome?
Honestly, I think the question answers itself. He wasn't capable of doing any better than he did. He had
There's a world where he prepared to not go over the 2 minutes.
He was incapable tonight on the biggest of stages that he sought. He, in effect, dictated. And with all of that preparation, he was incapable of doing better than he was. And you can't come back from that. You can't be in a stage where tens of millions of Americans watched you and come up empty. And that's what he did tonight.
This goes on and on and on, folks. It goes on and on and on. They're all saying the same thing, from Joy Reid to Rachel Maddow to Aunt B, Claire McCaskill, to that guy with all the syllables and consonants in his name that hosts something called the Young Turks that's supposedly important, and I don't know why. That guy was freaking out. They're all freaking out. They were all saying the exact same thing. Operation Shuck the Husk was launched last night. Hey, Mike Lindell and MyPillow. You know the name, 20 years. They've been singing the jingle on Fox News and on the radio. And it's no secret that Mike and the company have come under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of attack. Big box stores have tossed MyPillow from their stores. Even the online retailers now won't sell MyPillow products. And who does that hurt, really? I mean, yeah, I understand they don't like Mike's position on the election or whatever, but Mike employs hundreds of Americans, hundreds of Minnesotans who make great products. If you know the MyPillow products, I sleep on them every night. So does my dog Dean. They're great products, and he wants to sell them to you at unbelievable prices, by the way, but they're backed with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee, and most importantly, again, they're made here in the United States. So it's not something he's asking me to say. It's just something I'd like to remind you of, that a guy who has an opinion, who happens to own a very successful American company and employs a lot of Americans who make great American products that a lot of you have bought and owned or are looking to buy and own. I just want you to know that while he takes it on the chin a lot out there for having the positions he has, he wants to keep his employees busy. He wants to keep the company moving along, and so he's passing on huge, huge savings to you in what he's calling the $25 extravaganza. Getting the word out, I want to invite you to check out this $25 extravaganza today. 2 multi-pack MyPillows, just $25. MyPillow sandals, just $25. I'm looking at the list of these deals right now. 6-pack towel set, just $25. 6-pack of towels, $25. And the MyPillows with the new Giza fabric, just $25. And here's the thing, if you order any or all of this stuff, if you exceed $75 with your order, he ships it to you for free. So free shipping on anything $75 or over. And look, with all those deals and so many more at just $25 a piece, I think you'll be very, very pleased with not just the quality, but the price point and the free shipping. It's MyPillow.com. I hope you'll use the promo code ChrisPodcast. MyPillow.com, ChrisPodcast, to take advantage of all these savings. Get that free shipping over $75. Or call 800-932-5056. Great operators, American-based operators. You can call and say, hey, I'm with you. And hang in there. 800-932-5056. Don't forget the promo code ChrisPodcast. It lets them know you listen, which I appreciate, but more importantly, get you that deal. MyPillow.com or 800-932-5056. Promo code ChrisPodcast.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. Quite stylish. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe, but I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again.
Go ahead, caller. I'm listening.
All over my face. What is a boy to
Dr.
do?
Chris Stigall, live from Seattle this morning, about to set sail for Alaska. Let's go to caller Sean Spicer from Virginia. Go ahead, caller. I'm listening. Hi, Sean.
I just want to make sure that we all saved Medicaid.
Sean, I couldn't miss this one for the world. We're about to set sail for Alaska. I'm actually doing the show from Seattle, like middle of the nighttime.
Oh, you weren't kidding. You weren't. Okay, that is funny. I got the Fraser thing, and I thought there was some backstory. I didn't realize you were.
No, I'm really here.
All right, I'm kind of jealous. I've never taken a cruise, and I've never been to Alaska, so I could have checked off a ton of boxes. But I'm not a little. Don't worry, I'm not saying that I should have been invited. I'm just.
Have you ever been to Seattle? This is my first visit to this city.
I have been to Seattle.
I'm going to go to the Space Needle thing today.
Notice how you just swept away the fact that I wasn't invited. You just sort of let that go. Like, I'm not even going to acknowledge the fact that you didn't get invited. I get it. That's fine. But,
Sean Spicer hosts the wildly popular Sean Spicer Show, by the way. I'm kidding. I'm just joking.
You know how to make up, don't you?
He's the former White House press secretary. Now, I want you to put on your White House press secretary hat. I want you to pretend you are Pepe Le Pew this morning. Karine Jean-Pierre. I want you to pretend that everybody's going to head back to the White House today and ask you about the president's performance last night. Go ahead, Sean. Do your best spin, my friend.
I'd like to I'm going to have to refer you guys to the State Department on this one. It's a violation of the Hatch Act to discuss this. I'm going to let my deputy do the briefing today. I mean, the nice part is, I will say this: if the lucky thing that Karine Jean-Pierre has is that she's going to get up there and say, as you all know, the president has said things when he says stuff, and when he says those things, he uses words, and you've heard me say the words before. and you know when he says them. Next. And they're all going to nod and say, that's fine. And I don't really care what she says today, nor do I care any day. But the reality is that this is not it was so blatant, and they can't talk about cheap fakes and deep fakes and whatever. I mean, this is not something that you can just wish away and say, oh, well, this is Republican. I mean, even fired Chuck Todd last night said, they can't. This is not a clip. This was everybody got to watch it.
Sean, I got to ask you.
Can I make one point because I'm not Biden old, but I'm old, and I don't want to forget this.
All right.
I am very concerned this morning, though, and I'm not joking. I'm very concerned that we peaked too early. That the Democrats have seen the error of their ways. I'm glad to explain this. The only way that Joe Biden gets replaced, quote unquote, is that if he agrees to it. I do
Bingo.
Wonder, and Joe would have to be in on this.
Bingo.
So, I mean, just for all the conspiracy theories, he has to agree to this. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's increasingly. But here's why I say this. I think our side has to understand that, like, we're running around celebrating, and we may be sitting around in 3 weeks going, oh, crap, it's Gavin Newsom. Some people might say, well, that's good, that's bad. It's a different race. And anyone that's not Biden changes the dynamic real quick.
Yep.
And so I'm just telling you, everybody who's out there celebrating today, I agree. I get it. I was excited last night. I don't mean to be the wet blanket on a Friday, but I'm just telling you, I'm concerned that the reason they wanted this early was so that they had enough time. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Does it mean that the only way it happens is if Biden himself agrees to it? Yes. They cannot remove him. That's not going to happen. They control the delegates. They control the DNC. There is no outside entity. Okay? But I think that enough people will say to Biden, Joe, do the right thing. And there's a decent chance he listens to them. Everything changes real quick. And I've done enough of this, but it's sort of like if you're a baseball player and you're expecting a certain pitcher to come onto the mound and you know how they throw and you practice and you're ready to go and then they switch it up at the last minute. Does it mean you can't hit off them? No. But it just means that changed the game real quick and you have to reassess your strategy. And I think that would throw a huge curveball to us because we've put a lot of money into branding Joe Biden, to doing the opposition research, all that kind of stuff. And they would have a foot up on us. So I'm very, very concerned that we are going to regret how early this debate was. I've been saying this on the show every night. You know it because you've been on it. That these rules that everybody was whining over, Trump is no dummy. He knows exactly what he's doing. He agreed to those rules because it didn't matter to him. And that the mics, I said this every night, the mic muting benefited him. All you have to do is tell him the rules and he'll play by them. Right. And so once he knew that, he said, great, here's how I can use those rules to do better. And he did. Right. So the rules don't matter. He'll rise to the occasion as he always does. This is about whether or not we just took the bait and now they're going to say, now we're going to replace the guy. And I just wanted to get that out there because I am worried when you see. Here's the last thing I'll say on this. You know those times when we play those clips over and over again, Chris, and we're like, watch the talking point, and everybody says something like convicted felon the same day and the same time or whatever the phrase is, and they all get their talking points and then everyone in the media uses them. Last night, it was almost like the bat signal went on, and it said it's okay to criticize him. Like the gate is open, go. Yep. And they all did it at the same time, and I think there was a reason.
Oh, I agree. Everything you're saying, I agree with 100%. And that's the question I was going to ask you, Sean Spicer. Is the decision was made, the alarm was pulled, the bat signal was shown, whatever, and all of them in unison across all the networks, all the left that's been covering for him and hiding him from view and cutting Trump off and not letting him be heard and censoring and hiding Biden. They all in unison, you're right, said the exact same thing. And so that's my question. Is who's driving that? Has there been a collective decision? It's time for Joe to go, if that's what we watched last night. And then, of course, the next question, who will it be if not him? And doesn't that leave the vice president? And is she better? How do you get away from her?
So all good questions. I think it's a collective, like it's not one person. And so just it's because that's that. Okay. Number two, with the replacement, remember, if Biden's going to give this up, he's going to want to say who he's giving it up to. And that's why I think he's going to want to hand it to Kamala. He wants to have his legacy be that he helped put in the first black female president. He is not going to allow Barack Obama, who slighted him in 2016, to make the pick. It's not going to happen. Biden, at least a Biden team, the Biden campaign apparatus, controls the DNC and, had a big hand in all the delegates and all that kind of stuff. They are not going to turn that over to the Obama family, who slighted him in 2016 for Hillary Clinton, and let them do that. It's just not going to happen. So he is going to want to choose who his successor is.
I'm not going to spend.
I don't look. I think there's a lot of people, but my guess is that he wants it to be Kamala Harris.
Can they avoid it? I mean, is there any way it can't be her? I don't even understand how you get away from her.
So the only way that this works is that he would have to say, upon further reflection, almost do an LBJ thing, I want to focus on this, and therefore I'm not going to run, and blah, 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 blah. And then he says two things. Because he can't direct his delegates. He can free them, right? So he can't say, my delegates must vote for so-and-so. You just can't do that. But he can say, I am going to free my delegates up and then work behind the scenes to try to get them to do what he wants them to do. That's what I believe he's going to do.
Okay.
So I just remember, though, you can't. This isn't 1968, where it's the party bosses are not there anymore. But he can tell his delegates, I'm going to drop out, and I want you to support my Vice President Kamala Harris. But once they're free, they're free. Now, it's also a little weird. The rules differ between parties, but like our party system doesn't give you the ability. In some cases, you're bound, meaning that he can free you, but they still have to vote for a few rounds, and then they're released after. It depends on the state, and this gets real messy and real interesting. And I have a feeling that there's a lot of people with their DNC rule books this morning. But the only way it happens is if Biden himself agrees to it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced he will myself, Sean Spicer. Let me give you last night Kamala Harris with Anderson Cooper. I'm not going to play it all. I want to play some, though, just because you're a communications expert. You've been in the room and had to brief people after things like this on how they go on in the media and talk. This went so poorly for her. I'm told that she went into hiding for another half an hour and then was prepped a little better for MSNBC, but it was so late in the night, I think it was too late. She came on like a half an hour after this mess, and here's how it started with Anderson Cooper. Then I want to get your reaction, Sean.
CNN's John King has described a panic inside the Democratic Party right now because of President Biden's performance in tonight's debate. He's been hearing from Democratic lawmakers and others around the country. Some within your own party are wondering if President Biden should even step aside. What do you say to that?
Listen, first of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And what became very clear through the course of the night is that Joe Biden is fighting on behalf of the American people, on substance, on policy, on performance. Joe Biden is extraordinarily strong. And
I'm sorry, on substance and policy and performance tonight, the president's performance tonight clearly was disappointing for his supporters. CNN is reporting Democratic lawmakers watching the debate were worried about the president's performance. One said it was a disaster. Another called it a train wreck. Those are Democrats especially worried that Biden did not punch back on Trump's lies.
Listen, people can debate on style points, but ultimately this election and who is the president of the United States has to be about substance.
All right. And so it went on like this. Cooper would not let up, and she had a terrible time with it. And then, like I said, went into hiding, tried it again with MSNBC, and I'm told it went a little better for her later. But, what's her role in this? What is she being counseled to do after that mess? You can't avoid it was a mess.
Yeah, on the one hand, it's weird. So then she goes on to say, I don't want to talk about these 90 minutes. I want to talk about the 3.5 years. Wait a second. You booked yourself because you did want to talk about these 90 minutes, and you thought you would do better, and now you're pissed that you didn't. It was kind of weird. That being said, here's something that will surprise you. I will give her a little bit of credit for at least admitting that, quote, it didn't start well. It went off to a slow start.
Or finish well. Or the middle part.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but because I will say this, the general Washington rule is like, I mean, and you saw the talking points out of Biden world, which are like, even Joe, you answered every question. You get a cookie. It was like pretend it didn't happen. And I mean, like I said, I was actually shocked that she admitted it was off to a slow start, which is as far as that's sort of the range of criticism that's acceptable. But I mean, I think what she's balancing is this fact of, hey, I got to make sure that I don't go too far because I want to be the heir apparent. I am the heir apparent. I don't know. I was kind of I think she's like it's sort of like she's on a sinking ship and she's like, I know the right thing to do is to go down with the ship, but I also know that there's another boat out there that I can swim to right now.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Sean Spicer is a host of his own program. By the way, I know you're going to be unpacking this tonight on your own show, Sean. This your last prediction on this and how it unfolds. Number one, you're not confident he steps down. Trump is, in fact, nobody's really talking much about Trump. He was really mild-mannered, I think. I think he genuinely won on substance. I don't, they keep saying he was a liar. He lied. But he was.
But can I just say this? Here's the deal. I've heard that all morning long. It was almost like they had to say something.
Yes.
And I keep listening to the clips. And the clips, he may not have answered the question the way they liked. But
right.
what I find fascinating is they say on January 6th he lied. No, he didn't lie. He made a statement about the state of our country. They didn't like the way he answered it. That's not a lie. But this gets back to all of these things, an attack. You're attacking the moderators when you tell people that Jake Tapper used to be the Hooters spokesman. It's a fact. He may not like it. He may not want you to mention it, but he was the spokesman for Hooters. I get it. He may not want you to mention that he was the spokesman for handgun control or that he was the spokesman for Chelsea Clinton's mother-in-law when she was a Democratic member of Congress. But those are facts. Those aren't attacks. And the left is turned into now, it's like Trump, no matter what he says, he lied. Okay, well, because I listened, I bounced around all morning to see the coverage. And it was like that was their talking point. But the examples they gave weren't lies. They didn't like the way he answered something, but that doesn't make it a lie.
How about when Aaron Burnett said he had all this time and he was, do you think she meant what she sounded like she said? If I could play that quickly, Sean, and then I will let you go. Aaron Burnett. Questions. Yeah, listen to what she says here. It sounds awfully familiar to what we heard Donna Brazile admitting to having done with CNN. Here we go.
But Chris, he goes through 6 days of preparation at Camp David.
More than that.
And they know the rules.
It was more than a week.
Okay, so more than a week. They know the rules. He practices with the mics. He knows every one of these questions is coming. And yet he couldn't fill the time. Now, I just want to let's see what the
What does that mean? What does that mean, Sean Spicer?
It means one of two things. Number one, it means he had the questions. I got to be honest with you. I will take. If you watch you've been on my show, you've watched my show, you know my demeanor. I do not pull my punches when it comes to CNN. I think what she meant, and again, your audience is going to kill, but I think what it meant is like, look, when I prep for briefings, I could guess about 90%, 85% of the questions. When she says, I know they're coming, it's like, okay, we talked about this on my show yesterday. I did a roundtable with the panel. I said, what questions are coming? Immigration, abortion, democracy, January 6th. I think that's what she meant.
Okay.
But I think she needs to, but to look, just so we're clear, I think she needs to answer that question, not me. Based on CNN's history of giving away the questions, I think that's a valid question that no one but you and I and folks on the right are going to ask. But I think that I don't – you're asking me. I get why. I'm trying to explain what I hope was the answer. Yeah. But I think it's a valid question that you're asking based on their history.
All right. Listen, I know you're going to unpack more of this tonight on the show, right? I can't wait to tune in to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, we are. I mean, the funny thing is, I said this last night. We did a live on my YouTube right afterwards, And I was telling the audience, Chris, I said, I have like this minute by minute sheet. And I sat there in like a Google Doc. And I was like, okay, 9:42, Biden says this. And I was making points. My goal when I did the live on YouTube afterwards was to break it down minute by minute and say, okay, I thought he had a good point here. And it was like, as the debate was ending and I'm watching the reviews come in, I was like, I just threw out the window. And I'm like, this is cataclysmic for them. And so tonight it's going to be, where do they go from here? What does this really mean? And should we be worried about them actually replacing him? So I'll talk about that. And then, by the way, real quick, for those people, because it's a Friday, if you go to salemnow.com to Trump's Front Row Joe's movie, not .com, but I have in Front Row Joe's, I have a new documentary out that tells you about the MAGA movement, the people behind it. And I'd love for your audience to check it out because he's been there in Philadelphia. He's been around Pennsylvania. You guys, I have this scene in the movie from Pennsylvania that is epic. And I know so many of your viewers probably went to the rally that I have in the documentary. So if you just go to frontrowjoes.movie, you can check it out. But there's so much Pennsylvania in the movie that I think you guys in particular will love it.
FrontRowJoes.movie. Worth watching this weekend as everybody's feeling good about this debate last night. Sean Spicer, thanks for your time, my friend.
The Chris DeGaulle Show podcast.